Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day-to-day lives. Let's start with the video. It was an hour before my wedding. We were at the hotel getting ready. The venue was at the same hotel, so it wasn't much of a hassle to reach. I was in my room with my bridesmaids. We were excited. These were all my childhood friends. They were feeding me little snacks as there was still time for us to go down. We were waiting for the call. I was almost ready when the bell to our suite rang. One of them opened the door, and the lady outside said that she was from the groom's side. My friend invited her in happily. She called out to me, telling me that someone from my fiancé's side wanted to come to say hi. I had no problem with it, so I told her to bring her in. When she entered, I didn't recognize her. I apologized and asked her who she was, as I hadn't met her before. She smiled and told me that she was my future husband's sister. I was confused. My fiancé didn't have a sister. He was an only child. I told her she might be mistaken, she may have gotten the wrong room. But then she confirmed it by speaking out his name. She told me that it was okay for me to be confused as they didn't speak to her anymore. She told me that they had become estranged due to a lack of contact. I listened to her because I didn't want to be disrespectful, but I didn't buy it. My fiancé was the sweetest person I knew. If he had a sister, he would have cherished her. I met his whole family, and I'm sure if he had a sister, he or anybody from his family would have mentioned it once or twice. I interrupted her and asked her if there was no contact. Then what was she doing there? I mean, she clearly wasn't invited, but had come up to my room. Was she trying to mend their relationship or what? She told me she wanted to talk to me privately and asked me to come out with her. I honestly didn't want to go. There I was, sitting in my princess ball gown, and she wanted me to go with her. Who knows where? I refused. I told her she could tell me what she wanted to say right here. She told my bridesmaids to leave, but they refused. She didn't ask. She ordered. I was getting bad vibes from her. We all were. I didn't want her to ruin my wedding, so I called one of my bridesmaids to call my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law and I had a very good relationship. She called me over quite often, even when Hubby and I were just dating. My friend called her, but she wasn't able to reach her, so I whispered to her to go find her. They were on the other side of the hotel. The rest of my friends stayed with me. They were giving me looks, telling me that she was in trouble. I wanted to sort this out before my wedding. There wasn't much time left, so I asked her to get to the point or leave. It was clear that she didn't like me telling her that, so she started her story by telling me that I didn't know her brother and mother as well as she did. She told me that they had stolen her property, which her grandfather had given her, sold it without her consent, and didn't give her a penny from it. I was confused. If she was given property, it would be under her name. How were they able to sell it without her signing it? I also met my fiancé's grandpa. He was the sweetest thing ever. Now, this lady popped out of nowhere, telling me that she is his estranged sister and that my fiancé and his mother had stolen property from her. I asked her directly how they had managed to do that and why did she sign. She told me she didn't sign and that they had forged her signature. My bridesmaids scoffed. One could tell that nobody in the room believed her. She wasn't even near my fiancé's age. Even if there was a huge age gap, she looked like she was in her 40s, closer to my mother-in-law's age. I didn't want to rile her up either. I didn't know what she was capable of, but in between, one of my friends handed me my phone and I turned the camera on from the shortcut. She was being recorded. I asked her politely what she wanted me to do about it, and she told me to leave. She told me my and my family's reputations would be trashed if I didn't run and leave the wedding. She continued telling me that she had proof and that she was going to get the cops involved. I was curious about the proof. If she had proof, why didn't she get the cops involved before? I asked her and she said she was waiting for the right time. I have a pretty good sense of people, and I could tell she was BSing me. If I had been alone, I may have gotten a little scared. This person was all things wrong, and when I looked around, my friend's expressions confirmed it. My mother-in-law and fiancé weren't the type of people to do that. If she was right, then other family members would still be in contact with her. Grandpa would have stood up for her. It had been around 20 minutes since my friend went to find my would-be mother-in-law. They should have been back by now, and just as I was thinking about them, I heard the door open and my mother-in-law called out to me. I told her I was in there, and after her came plenty of footsteps. Who else had come in? She entered the room and glared at the lady claiming to be the estranged sister. I was going to stand up, but my mother-in-law told me to sit down. She smiled and told me I looked beautiful, then went back to glaring at the other lady. The estranged sister smiled at mother-in-law, but I could tell she was nervous. She kept shifting and looked around nervously. I didn't expect what happened next. My mother-in-law slapped her right across the face and dragged her out. My jaw dropped. It was clear that she knew her, but whatever it was more than just a grudge. I tried to follow them. I could hear my mother-in-law yelling at her, demanding to know why she had come back after what she had done. There were other family members that were there. I heard Grandpa's voice, and he sounded angry. My fiancé's grandpa was the most patient and laid-back person. It surprised me to hear him like that. I wanted to go out, but my friend stopped me, suggesting otherwise. I had about 25 minutes until the wedding. I needed to do my last-minute prep and put on my veil. Suddenly, my father-in-law popped up at the entrance of my room and apologized profusely for the situation. I told him it wasn't his fault and asked him who she was. He told me that he would explain later, as he didn't want to aggravate me anymore. After all, this wasn't a good surprise. I insisted, but suddenly security came in and made sure everything was okay. I had come outside now. Security then cuffed the lady as she was screaming and dragged her out. They should have put a muzzle on her, too. I could see some of my husband's family members there. Some of them were raging. Once they saw me, they had an apologetic look in their eyes and kept apologizing repeatedly, saying this should never have happened and that they were so sorry about all of this. They then walked out and my mother-in-law stayed behind. My friends were making sure I was all right. Somehow, I had kept calm throughout this situation. My mother-in-law sat me down and explained to me that the so-called estranged sister was a sister, but not to my fiancé or her. The lady was an estranged cousin of the family. There was an issue with the property, but the one that caused it was her. She had tried to forge Grandpa's signature and sell one of Grandpa's properties in the countryside to some shady people for some money. Turns out she had caused a lot of trouble, and my husband's family had a restraining order against her. She had the guts to try and cause trouble with me because technically I wasn't part of the family yet. I had to file for a separate restraining order against her. At that time, I remembered the recording I had and gave it to my mother-in-law. She asked me to send it to her too, as it would come in handy. I was 10 minutes late, but 10 minutes wasn't that bad, I guess. I needed to take a few minutes to get myself together, some calm and some peace. I listened to some music as I went down. My family was made aware of the situation but was asked not to step in, as it would be better if it was handled by my husband's side of the family. Fortunately, everything had been sorted out. Security was in place if needed. The rest of the day had gone by smoothly. The ceremony was beautiful. My now husband was made aware of the situation and he did apologize to me, saying that he should have warned me, but it wasn't his fault. Update 1. 2 weeks later. Since the estranged sister went against the restraining order, the cops were called that day. She was jailed and had to pay a fine. Many of you were asking why I didn't believe her at first. As I said before, I have a good sense of people's character, and I followed my gut in this situation. Update 2. A few months later. I filed for a restraining order against her, which was granted. She won't be a problem anymore. A few of you asked me why she said she was my husband's estranged sister instead of my mother-in-law's estranged cousin. If you think about it, I wouldn't have cared as much if she were some random cousin. I think she said she was related to my husband to get more attention from me so she could cause trouble. That day, I could be calm because all my friends were backing me up. My decision to not go out alone with her was right. OP was calm and strong, AF. Brides are usually so stressed out on their wedding day. I think I would have burst out crying if this happened on my wedding day. NTA, you trusted your guts, and most of all, you knew who you were marrying and what type of family you were marrying into. I wish I could be as strong as OP. Is this what it looks like to grow up in a healthy family, or did she take a lot of therapy? Next story. Back about 3 months ago, I lost my job as an RN following a gym accident that left me partially paralyzed in my left leg. I had to go through PT, but it wasn't super severe by any means, and I regained most mobility by last month. I'm still in PT, however, because there are simply certain things I cannot do, like bend the leg without me guiding it with my hands. So it looks like I'm walking with a peg leg, basically. During this time, my mother-in-law sent my husband like $600. We did not ask her for the money, but she knew we were pretty hard up at that time because my insurance does not cover all of PT, and it was rather expensive, so our savings was going away at an alarming rate. Also, during this time, my mother-in-law made me feel like absolute shit because she kept making comments about how broke she was and kept saying, well, if I hadn't helped you guys out, stuff like that. I often reminded her that we did not ask for help. She tried sending us more money shortly thereafter, and I refused to accept it because I wasn't about to have that shit dangling over my head. Just like my own scum family had done for years. I hate the whole, you wouldn't have that if it weren't for me bullshit. It's the reason I refuse most help. Thankfully, I was able to start a new job from home about a month back, and we were able to start coming up with money to pay mother-in-law back. Well, my husband goes to his mother's yesterday to give her a portion of the money we owed, and when he returned, he starts talking about wanting to give his mom like $400 extra. I asked why, and he mumbled some excuse of, well, she didn't have to help us. I told him I wasn't about to do that because $400 is literally like 34 hours of work, close to an entire paycheck of mine. Well, to sum it up, he later admitted that his mother had said that she deserves interest on the loan since it took us so long to pay it back, and she almost went broke trying to help us. Generally, she is not a money-hungry person or even this ignorant, if I'm being honest, but I'm still not willing to do it. I said absolutely not, and if he plans to start paying her back interest, especially where he has been doing all other things for her on top of this, like redoing her porch, painting her house, burning brush, mowing her 6-acre lot, etc., then I would be rethinking my options and potentially pulling my money from the shared account because I'm not going to be funding his mother extra money on a loan we didn't ask for. And it's now going to be cutting into my paychecks, bill money. He keeps arguing, she didn't have to help. So I snapped and said, I didn't ask her fricking help, and I said no. I was calm prior to this. He says I'm an AH for losing my cool over money and that I'm acting selfish because, again, she didn't have to help. AITA? NTA. You didn't ask for this money. You didn't ask for it, so you definitely didn't agree to monstrously usurious interest rates on this money. It's her responsibility to manage her finances, including not loaning people more money than she can actually afford to loan, particularly and bizarrely loaning them more than she can afford against their will. Her demanding unconscionable interest rates, knowingly levied on top of her struggling son's family, on top of expecting a bunch of continued free favors from them, mowing and so forth, that she rather obviously takes for granted? Just know, mother-in-law, and there's a subreddit with that name, by the way, that might resonate with you. That said, this isn't really a mother-in-law problem or a money problem. Those are just the symptoms. At the root, this is really a husband's problem. You two are very much not on the same page about mother-in-law or money. And yet, he's going off and unilaterally promising a bunch of stuff to her anyway. Not okay. That has to stop. NTA and 2 suggestions. 1, separate your finances from your husband's, open your own bank account for your own paychecks, and deposit an agreed upon amount into a joint account for the purpose of covering household and shared expenses. Also, get your own credit card that is not in any way tied to your husband or your joint accounts. There are plenty of resources out there that lay out how to make this kind of financial arrangement work. 2, make it very clear to both your husband and mother-in-law that you will no longer accept gifts or loans of money from your mother-in-law. If he chooses to do so, that's on him, and he's 100% responsible for paying back any loans from her. Next story. I'm female 20 and my fiance is male 23. We bought a 90s car that needed some work. He got it fixed and he started driving me places in it. When I would ask or show I wanted to drive it, he got very upset about it. I never got to drive it, but his friends have. We ended up splitting for a min over it. I recently put a down payment on a 2022 Toyota Tacoma double cab. I went with my uncle to get it, and when I signed for it, I put it in my name, and my uncle co-signed for it. When I pulled in with it, he came outside smiling from ear to ear. He hugged me and thanked me for getting him his dream truck. I was trying to explain to him it was mine, but he had already jumped into it. He then saw the paperwork laying there and asked if he needed to sign it. Before I could answer, he read whose name it was in. He slowly got out and went in the house. He didn't speak to me for the rest of the night. While he was at work, he texted me and said, "It's really disrespectful that you got my dream truck and didn't put it in my name. I'll be staying at my mom's tonight." I didn't respond. Later on, he sent me a pic of a GMC asking if it was pretty. I said, I didn't like GMC, but if he liked it, it's pretty. He said, well, doesn't matter, you got the Toyota. So I just left him on read. He has yet to come home and I'm regretting getting the truck. So AITA? Edit. I forgot to mention that my uncle co-signed because I don't have any credit yet. Where I got the truck, you have to have credit. My uncle has some bomb-ass credit, so he was willing to sign because I've been saving up for a Tacoma. I saved up $4,000 to put down and got a loan. My uncle didn't care to do it because I make roughly $1.2K every month, plus I have savings my grandpa put up for me. My grandpa said I can use it to pay for the car if need be. I don't know how much is in it, but my grandpa said it could get me through life with no worry for a year or so. Edit 2. Everyone is concerned about me affording the truck, so I'm going to break it down for you. He owns the house we live in. Utilities are no more than $300 a month, which he pays. We spend at most $350 every month on food. I pay half of the $350. I'm on my dad's insurance and he pays for it. So all I paid before the truck was $150 to $175. The truck is a little over $37K. The payment every month is $530. I've paid more a month on a car while paying other bills. I was able to not get such a high payment due to my uncle having good credit, plus I'll be paying it off over 72 months, but can always trade it in if I want to in the future. NTA. I do not get the men out there who assume that the house, car, will have their name on the title deed when they do not pay for it at all. And then they get all but hurt about it and try to make you feel bad about not trusting them, torturing them with getting their dream car, etc. I would not recommend you marry him. He seems to think what's mine is mine and what's yours is also mine. I would also suggest that you be very careful with paying for the truck. It's your uncle's credit on the line, so if you miss a payment, it will very quickly rank his bomb credit. That will then lead to a lot of resentment. Make sure you have at least a few months' payments on the truck set aside for emergencies. Did you really get the truck because you needed it, or did you get it to piss your fiance off because he was withholding the car you both bought? Is your name on that title or the loan for the car? Because that could screw you if he decides to be petty about it. If he won't let you drive it, he should pay you for the money you put towards it. Please consider these red flags and see if there are others you've excused. And do that before you have any kids with this guy. You don't need another person to take care of on your own, on top of having to baby your fiancé. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.